I now want to switch over to that other big story that we're tracking here on India First. Former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been sentenced to death by a tribunal in Dhaka. Now, this tribunal found her and Bangladesh's then Interior Minister Asaduzzaman Khan Kamal guilty of crimes against humanity. Now, Sheikh Hasina has been sentenced to death in absentia. Sheikh Hasina hit back at the verdict, calling the tribunal a kangaroo court that not only rushed through the verdict, but did not examine evidence or give her a lawyer of her choice to present her case. She now has 1 month to surrender, join investigations, and challenge the verdict. The Muhammad Yunus administration has demanded India hand her over, and not doing so would be seen as an act of enmity or words to that effect. We get you more in this report.
Bangladesh International Crimes Tribunal indicts Sheikh Hasina. The tribunal sentenced Hasina to death in absentia for what it calls a state-sanctioned massacre of student protesters in 2024. The tribunal found Hasina conspired to commit mass killings. The court said she knowingly authorized lethal force and that she failed to stop atrocities even after warnings. Inside the court, there were cheers.
We have decided to inflict her with only one sentence, that is sentence of death.
But step outside and it's the opposite scene. Awami League loyalists calling the judgment a political execution and breaking down.
Right now, there is no rule of law in Bangladesh. The constitution is basically being disregarded. So right now, there's nothing much to do. Once the rule of law returns, all of this will get thrown out on appeals because the entire process is so illegal and unconstitutional that it will not survive. So any legal process will have to wait until there is a rule of law in Bangladesh.
The death penalty plunged Bangladesh into chaos. Mobs with bulldozers gathered outside the home of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Bangladesh's founding father, demanding the iconic residence be demolished. Hasina herself remains in India, where she took refuge after her government collapsed on August 5. In a blistering statement, Hasina calls the tribunal rigged and controlled by an unelected regime. She accuses extremist elements of trying to erase the Awami League. The interim government, calling the verdict historic, urged calm and warned that any unrest will be strictly suppressed. Dhaka has now formally asked India to hand over Hasina and former Home Minister Kamal under the country's extradition treaty.
আরেকটা কথা বলতে চাই, সেটা হচ্ছে আমরা শেখ হাসিনার কে দেশে প্রত্যর্পণের জন্য, এক্সট্রাডিশনের জন্য ভারতের কাছে আবার চিঠি লিখব। ভারত যদি এই গণহত্যাকারীকে আশ্রয় দেওয়া অব্যাহত রাখে, তাহলে ভারতকে বুঝতে হবে এটা বাংলাদেশ এবং বাংলাদেশের মানুষের বিরুদ্ধে একটা শত্রুতা, একটা অত্যন্ত নিন্দনীয় আচরণ।
India has reacted to the verdict against Sheikh Hasina, saying it has noted the ICT ruling and remains committed to peace, democracy and stability in Bangladesh. India added it is engaging constructively with all stakeholders. With a nation split between celebration and rage, troops on the streets and mobs circling the home of the country's founding father, Bangladesh now enters a dangerous new chapter. Bureau Report, India Today.
Not handing over Sheikh Hasina would be seen as an act of enmity or words to that effect. These are claims of the Muhammad Yunus administration in Dhaka. Sheikh Hasina is in India. She actually barely survived by the skin of her teeth as that rampaging mob had attacked her official residence. Now she's been sentenced to death. Now, Ambassador Sikri remains with me on this broadcast, as does Professor Brahma Chilani. Also joining me is Professor Ayanjeet Sen. General Bhatia is with me on this broadcast. I also want to bring into this conversation Varis Sunabi Khandwekar, who's the former editor of GTV in Dhaka. In fact, he was asked to leave once radical Islamists had taken over. And Varis Sunabi Khandwekar, how do you look at this verdict? And Bangladesh telling India, hand over Sheikh Hasina. If you don't, it's an act of enmity.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me. You already know that the interim government has made another ridiculous chapter in judicial arena. The court, the ICT court, has declared death sentence former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and former Home Minister Ashaduজ্জামান Khan Kamal. You have already I think you have already seen a video clip of the lawyer of Sheikh Hasina in behalf of Sheikh Hasina, Mr. Amir Hossain, have given an speech to Bangladeshi media with a smiling face, but he said that he is hurt by this kind of verdict. So this is the reality. You may know the ICT, 3 judges of ICT recruit
Yes.
Illegally as like the interim government. And you know the lawyer of opposition lawyer of Sheikh Hasina with Mr. Attorney General Assaduজ্জামান have affiliation with some political parties like Jamaat Islam. So
imagine, and that is why she wasn't given a lawyer of her choice. Ambassador Sikri, can Bangladesh demand that she be extradited? What do you make of the tone, tenor, or are they only playing to their local audiences?
No, absolutely. I think this kind of a statement made by Asif Nazrul is a typical example of the anti-Indianism being preached actively by the Yunus regime, but it also shows a complete lack of understanding of what the process of extradition entails. Now, you cannot get anybody extradited by sending a one-sentence letter or a one-sentence demand saying now she has to be extradited, otherwise there will be enmity. The process of extradition involves that Bangladesh government must now send all these details, the court case, the evidence, what was tested, what was not tested, all that has to be sent to the government of India together with the request for extradition. Then the government of India examines that. And in all probability, there will be another court case in India as well to examine the details of those processes. Of course, the government of Bangladesh is free to give their lawyer for that. Sheikh Hasina can send her lawyer for that. The Indian government will have its own lawyer. So the process of extradition will then continue in India through an examination of the evidence given by the government of Bangladesh. And even, I mean, for example, the entire question of the ICT trying Sheikh Hasina doesn't have a mandate at all. The ICT was created by a legal mandate under the Parliamentary Act of 1973 only to try those who committed crimes during the 1971 Liberation War. Now, for an unelected government, an unconstitutional government, to suddenly say that this is the one that will try Sheikh Hasina and also change the judges. You will not believe that the chief prosecutor in the ICT is the same person who was defending the war criminals under Sheikh Hasina. So under Sheikh Hasina's government in the ICT, this person was defending the war criminals, saying they didn't do anything, they're good people, etc. And now suddenly he's made the chief prosecutor of the ICT. So it really makes no sense at all. This is really a kangaroo court decision, as Sheikh Hasina has said.
You say it's a kangaroo court? Okay. And Professor Ayanjeet Sen, Sheikh Hasina has called this verdict through a rigged tribunal, saying established and presided over by an unelected government that does not have democratic mandate. Due process was not followed. She wasn't given a lawyer of her choice. Now, what are her options? Can she go to an international court? Does she have to join trial in a, does she have to surrender in a month? Or is it endgame for her as far as Bangladesh is concerned?
Thank you, Gaurav. No, it's definitely not an end game for her because as long as she is in India, and as Ma'am Sikri said as well, there's certain protocols that need to be followed before anything of that sort happens. So it's not that easy for any Bangladeshi advisor to just come on television and speak out saying, well, we want Hasina back. And it's just that they are trying to build a narrative. And that narrative started off with after the court verdict when Yunus apparently said that, it's a historic verdict against Hasina, and then followed it up through different means. So this kind of a narrative is being built because he has the upcoming elections, which he wants to schedule in February next year.
Yes.
So it's all done in such a manner that even if by chance, if they have to get Awami League into the fray, it would be without Sheikh Hasina. And
So
Sheikh
is
Hasina
that
being
the
the
entire
backbone.
game plan, Professor Chilani? Ensure that there is no Awami League or Sheikh Hasina in the February election, rig it before the election starts, and remain in power by proxy. You see radical Islamists completely take over Bangladesh now?
Gaurav, the first thing that we should not forget is that the same dark forces that assassinated Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and much of his family in 1975 are today going after the main survivor of that 1975 massacre, Sheikh Hasina. And what's the reason? Sheikh Hasina still has a mass base in Bangladesh. You know how they have cracked down on Awami League members and leaders. They have imprisoned thousands and thousands of Awami League leaders and workers. And yet, in recent days alone, there have been flash protests in Dhaka and elsewhere in Bangladesh, including by students in support of Sheikh Hasina. So she still is a big threat to those who are in power and those who are seeking to come to power, like Jamaat and the BNP. But look at the irony of ironies. Today, an unconstitutionally installed regime in Dhaka that is overseeing rampant human rights abuses wants India to extradite Hasina, who was overthrown in a virtual military coup. India should turn the tables on Dhaka. India did not invite Sheikh Hasina to come and take refuge in India. No.
Absolutely.
The military in Bangladesh packed her off to India without consulting India. India was given no choice. They bundled her on a military aircraft. And as the military aircraft was taking off, they called New Delhi and asked for permission for the plane to enter Indian airspace without confiding in India that they had staged a virtual coup. So, we need not be on the defensive. First, in international law, an unconstitutionally installed regime cannot seek the extradition of someone who was ousted.
That's a very pertinent point you make, sir. Very pertinent point. So, Varis Sunabi Khandokar, will Sheikh Hasina, in your view, her party has been banned, she has been sentenced to death. So 2026 elections in February, will there be a sham? Can Awami League some way fight back for restoration? Or that's not possible with these radical Islamists in power? Hizb ut-Tahrir virtually calling the shots in Dhaka.
Thank you. It is very tough to come back Awami League and take a part in election next February, because the Bangladesh already taken over by the militant groups on evaluation of Dr. Muhammad Yunus. So if Awami League wants to take a part in election in February, so they have to fight against them. That is very impossible. But the people of Bangladesh feeling the Awami League mostly, and the Bangladesh economy, Bangladesh law enforcement, and everything has gone down. The unemployment situation is very tough. There is no income in foreign investment. So in this circumstances, Bangladeshi peoples wants to take back Awami League again, and I think today, tomorrow, they will fight for Awami League, and
Can they do so? Can they do so? Is that even possible? We'll track that story very closely. I've slightly run out of time on this part of the show. I want to thank all my guests, though there are many, many questions, especially security implications for India in this situation. So you have a threat from the west, you have a threat from the east, and you have a threat within. How will India come out of this Chakravyuh remains our top focus story in the days and weeks ahead.